This is Macroanalytics, delivering frank conversations on global macroeconomics and market analysis, outside the mainstream, featuring discussions and debates between Gordon T. Long, publisher and editor of GordonTLong.com, and his guests. The content of this discussion is strictly the opinion of the participants. It is in no way a solicitation for business, nor is it to be considered investment advice of any sort. Always consult a registered investment advisor before making any investment decision. These discussions are extremely hard-hitting and terribly frank, and parental discretion is advised. Now, on to the show.
Good morning. I'm Gord Long with GordonTLong.com, and I have with me again this morning Ty Andros. Ty is the president of TraderView. He is the publisher of the TEDbits website and writer and editor of his so very well-recognized newsletter. It's been out for many years now, the also named TEDbit. We're going to continue with the next session on our series here on counterfeiting.
We really just see a bunch of deadbeat economies floating along on previous excess until this stops, and they're forced to actually produce more than they consume and be self-sustaining. Nothing's going to change, and self-sustaining is the right word. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. We're just headed for the ultimate denouement when people finally wake up and understand that they're holding IOUs of morally and physically bankrupt public servants.
See, Ty, they can't stop the flywheel. And the flywheel can only get faster, and that's why you see it to be in free fall and accelerating, because once you're on this treadmill of creating money by the nature of the reserve banking system, and you're bleeding out of the reserve system payments on debt, I'll call it debt saturation, to in fact reduce it and start to implode it, everything starts to come down because collateral values themselves are then lowered in pricing value. So the only way that they perceive to be able to continue going is, in fact, to accelerate money printing. And, in fact, anything less than accelerating the rate of money printing, you start a contraction. Whether you want to use words like deleveraging, which is a fancy word for non-performing loans, is what they're facing. So the monetary mavens in the world, that's what they've decided has to be done because they see no way out. And there is no way out until you have a massive readjustment and a change in pricing and a correction of the malinvestment, a market clearing event. There is no way out. It's preordained at this point in time.
Well, that, and you have to see what we saw in Reagan's time. We have to see literally a repeal of a third of the regulations that are out of there from the government. Complete and absolute out of there. And they have to lower taxes to the point where domestic companies and people want to produce. And they're not going to because, like I said, the tax system, we don't have a territorial tax system. It's the death of America.
See, Ty, they're also grappling with the problem that we've got basically 6 to 7 billion people in the world now that are all coming into some level of middle class, and there are no jobs out there. The rate of the ability to grow jobs is not there. The World Bank said for us to pull ourselves out of this problem, we'd have to create 600 million jobs in 10 years. It's an impossibility. And what we're facing is Schumpeter's creative destruction in such a monumental degree today, that is the Internet, that has revolutionized supply chains, clerical jobs, all sorts of things that required manual clerical work are gone. Meanwhile, we got more and more people that are looking for work, are highly educated, and we don't have the growth to employ them. But we have the social nets that guarantees by all of the governments to keep them at a certain standard of living, and the system does not work. It does not deliver that. And we can't create jobs, real jobs, fast enough. Even factory workers, we can't. Jobs, I ran factories, Ty. I mean, everything went to automation. The Kanban, pull, JIT systems completely changed the face of factories. Factories today are basically lights out factories. So there's no labor anymore in manufacturing, very small amount of it. So where is the labor? You go to farms, it's all automated. So it's not in a clerical. And the Internet, as it continues to build up speed. So they're facing this massive, massive issue where real growth is.
I think that there is wealth creation, but it's not happening here. It's happening in places like China and Germany. and Singapore and Korea and places that are in Australia where it's being mined, or big agricultural areas. I guess I do believe wealth creation is still alive and well, but not here in the United States. And of course, really all of the great opportunities have been transferred to big corporations in terms of crony capitalism.
Yeah, Ty, you're absolutely right. Differences I'm talking about in net, because what you effectively have is you have a transfer to those countries who are in fact creating wealth. But on the other hand, it's coming from countries where the wealth is being destroyed. And in fact, the net growth that's in the world is we're not really having real growth at a sustained rate against the amount of debt that has to be paid as part of this debt saturation. So what you have is this massive transfer. But the standards of living don't support it in the developed countries to maintain their current standards. And that's where the wealth destruction is really is being netted out.
The developed world is going to have to go back to producing wealth rather than consuming it. Those are economic models.
Without question. See, Ty, one of the issues at core is the balance of payments around the world. I don't want to get technical, but it all has to be zero. So if somebody has a positive, somebody's got to have a negative. So if the United States had a positive balance of trade, somebody else around the world would end up with a negative one. So that is really at the core of a lot of the issues. It's been working beautifully because the United States having a negative balance of trade has allowed it, in fact, to turn into credits. For us, it's a debit, but for others, it's a credit. And so you have to have this misbalance. That's part of what I referred to earlier as the Triffin paradox. But the problem we have is we are not creating wealth at a sufficient rate to offset this destruction that's going on with Schumpeter's creative destruction. That is the advancements of robotics, the advancements of internet, the whole nature of work is being revolutionized right in front of us.
And how wonderful.
Well, it is wonderful. It's actually the best thing for mankind. We need to understand that wealth is not created by paper. Wealth, you either have to grow it, you have to mine it, or you have to build it. And therein lies the problem, because that's where real wealth comes. It's not out of paper, and all we're doing is we're moving paper instruments around continuously. And there's no wealth creation in that process. There's only transfer of claims of assets.
Yes, technology has changed that a little bit in my mind. I believe that doing things faster, better, and cheaper is a type of productivity wealth generation that's actually, I think, very hard to measure.
Without question, it's the ultimate productivity, and it typically transfers into wealth because, in fact, you're producing better than another competitor. You're going to create and you're going to get a bigger share. The problem is the pie's not growing fast enough. The total pie so it moves around your share, but the total pie is not growing fast enough. What we need, Ty, is we need massive new industries or areas of innovation that will take us to employ people. And we have them. They're there. We just aren't applying the capital to do it. Whether we want to talk about green energy, new energy processes, whether we want to talk about something that will, in fact, make us more productive as a global society.
But we can say that. I mean, just think of the United States right now, Gord. And you sit there and you look at the domestic energy reserves throughout the nation. I mean, this, I think Romney understates it when he says 3 million jobs. We could be completely energy efficient, I believe, within a decade. If we only had started it 10 years ago, we'd already be there. And of course, we didn't have fracking back then, but there's more oil in the Rockies than in all of the Middle East. Okay. And I don't believe in clean energy. Clean energy is great, but it's a fiction. It doesn't produce more than it consumes. And if you had to choose it over a coal-fired electricity or natural gas or oil or whatever, you'd always choose the conventional source of energy because it's 1/10 the cost of the wind power. Okay, I mean, and we sit here and we look at the storm up there that just hit Sandy, and we see how many resources have been misallocated to welfare over maintaining the infrastructure of the United States in the proper manner.
See, Ty, you're absolutely right in the things you're saying, but the flip of this is that we were energy insufficient, and we could do that, which would be profound. The dollars that would be flowing out of this country with the massive amount of money we're spending on energy would dramatically be reduced. That sounds positive. In fact, that would be destructive to the global economy. And think of it this way: Saudi Arabia can actually produce oil at $2 to $5 a barrel. They go not $90. Their whole total economy is based on the profit. That everything that's spent and as part of their standard of living is based on that differential. So if it even changed marginally, you would have social unrest of huge proportions in just, I'm picking on one country. We could take that in multiple ways with multiple countries around the world because we've got into this artificial growth that was unsustainable. So in many ways, we're locked in as a country because of the agreements we struck to create the petrodollar. So to become energy, and we're capable of becoming energy self-sufficient. But if you wonder where the political drag involved in it and the powers to be, that's part of the issue because it'll come back like a boomerang to hit us of the collapsing world economies.
Well,
I'm not justifying it, Ty. I'm just trying to give a coloring to some of the geopolitical issues that are going on that are not truly recognized. I'm not saying they're right. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just trying to say they're there.
Well, we shall see. Of course, all of the money that we paid Saudi Arabia, they're sitting on billions and trillions of dollars worth of worthless pieces of paper.
Well, that's what's wrong with the whole gig.
They're sitting on toilet paper, as you well know. There's no difference between a U.S. bond and a U.S. dollar and a Zimbabwe $50 trillion note. They have intrinsic value of nothing.
What we've done is we've put ourselves in this treadmill, and everything is now counterfeit. So these bonds and this paper all these countries are holding is in fact just that. It's just counterfeit toilet paper. It's not backed by anything. It's not backed by any real wealth.
Redeemable in nothing. You can buy nothing with it. I promise you, they will be forced to just buy paper. They're not going to be able to be buying assets of any real value. I mean, it may look like that. Okay, they buy a hotel chain or something, but that really is, a drop in the bucket.
Ty, we're up against our hard line, and we have to break here. Any closing comments you'd like to make to tie this together?
We went through the toilet paper of why paper is worthless, and of course we've talked about 23% of the economy is basically an illusion, and then you have to add inflation to it, and we've got these charts here from John Williams, but we're just at the very end of this game, this charade. This delusion, this deception, and now we're waiting for people to wake up. And as the playing gets worse and worse, they're going to wake up, Gord.
We're going to be shaken because of this adjustment process will happen. It has to happen. Right now, it's happening. And I agree with you, Ty, that the rate at which it's happening. But in many ways, it's somewhat transparent to the average person. But it won't be probably within the next 12 to 18 months. It's going to become very, very easy to see.
Well, it's just like Iran. Okay, Iran up until, 60 or 90 days ago was just cruising along. And then all of a sudden, 60 days later, their money buys 1/3 of what it bought before.
Ty, the world has been in not this particular situation, but have been in somewhat similar situations before. And unfortunately, the way it's always ended is ended up in a major political conflict, whether you want to call it a war, but it's always ended up in something where, in fact, resources had to be redistributed in a massive way. Whether it's a threat of war, whether it's a cyber attack, but something that really disrupts the normal status quo, and that it becomes the excuse, the false flag, whatever, to be able to start to do the rebalancing, the repricing, and the readjustments. And the IMF have out roadmaps to show how they want to change the world's reserve currency to a new structure. So there's a lot of people that have got ideas on how this can be transacted or how this transition can happen, but there's no firm agreement. And typically what will happen is something will break or a false flag will be created. So I say to our listeners, watch for geopolitical events and fear. Fear is going to become the operative word in the next 18 months.
Well, that and when hope turns to fear, as you know, I've written about it a lot, Gord. But I would say that all of those preparations have been made. You and I can see them. They're ready for that. They're ready to pull the plug and go through the chaos. How it unfolds, we don't know. But it's there on the table. They've, written the executive orders and passed the laws and everything else to, I'm going to call it, contain the public. And obviously it's very frightening. But I think it'll blow up in their face this time. I don't believe that it's quite as controllable as it was when in the 1930s when the U.S. was still a fairly small country.
Before it was always a country or two countries, but it was regionalized, if you would. This is global.
That's right.
The level of complexity is unmanageable. So I cannot believe that it managed process. I think that's only to some degree, but the government is preparing for something. Whatever it is, I don't know, I'd be speculating, but they're clearly preparing for something.
In summation, I know you wanted me to sum it up. I'm just going to say it. That's compounding at about 11 or 12% compound annual rate internationally. The economies of the developed world are imploding at the same rate. We've seen central bank balance sheets expand by 200 or 300% in the last since 2008. But that was before QE to infinity, and now we're looking at it to go up tenfold. We're looking for that to happen fairly rapidly. And so as the West tries to spread misery widely, which is also the name of socialism, they're going to just have it blow up in their faces. And the powers that be are in place, so they pretty much own all the productive capacity in the world. There is no policies of wealth creation at all in the developed world. And so it's now time to pay the piper. And it's going to be pain, 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 pain. But as I said before, this is not doom and gloom. These are the greatest opportunities in history. But if you look to make, I'll call it the illusion of gains through printed money, that's going to blow up in your face. And the greatest opportunities in history are at hand. You called it regional. That's correct. This is a global opportunity. But you better change the prescriptions that you're using. And it's sound money, not storing wealth in paper, not being deeply in debt unless most of your money's in metals, so the gains there can pay off your debt at a nickel on the dollar. You have to be able to make money when markets decline. You really need to apply Austrian economics. And as you well know, Gord, I am applied Austrian economist. I defy you to really show me anybody else. There's some people that tell you to buy gold and silver, buy mining stocks, and those are correct, but it's really not a great recipe. They really don't quite understand it. It just is the greatest opportunity in history. This is not doom and gloom. We're bringing people truth so that they can better prepare themselves for the future and thrive rather than be the victims of some of the most evil people in the world. And it's the leaders of the Western world, and it's the banking and financial systems that are really designed to do one thing, and it's turn free men into debt slaves.
Ty, I see it as we have a system that's put us on a course where we have people that are trapped, and trapped animals do desperate kinds of things. But what we will see is out of this will be the biggest transfer of wealth in history. From your pension plan to other hands in this market clearing kinds of events that I see. What everybody needs to do is prepare yourself so that you will be the recipient of the transfer, not the giver of the transfer. And where that begins and starts with is understanding what sound money is, what real value is, and how you protect and keep your money in something that has real store of value. And it's in fact not money. Or currency. So you need to understand what real wealth is. Ty, we need to wrap. Could you tell our listeners how, in fact, they could learn more about your outstanding work, your great website, and your long-term newsletter?
Well, I do TED Bits, which is the economic and financial no-spin zone, and it's all through the Austrian lens, the analysis is. And that's free, and you can get it at tedbits.com, and it comes out about once a month, although that frequency will be increasing, and Gordon and I are doing some stuff once a month, and so there'll be a lot of good analysis coming out of it, and that sort of thing. And then I have Trader View, and this is where my primary work is, and what that is helping people protect and build wealth during what's unfolding. And I'm an absolute return alternative investment specialist, which is quite a mouthful, but basically I'm a manager of managers and an asset allocator. And I find you managers that can trade globally, and if markets are going down, hopefully they'll put you in a position and manage the risk for you, or going up or going sideways. And then I apply some of my own work, which is restoring the functions of money, so that you can't be preyed on as this transfer of wealth happens. In fact, by restoring the functions of money, you can really actually look to benefit as this transfer happens rather than be a victim of it. And it's good for part of, really, I believe, anybody's portfolio that's got a portfolio of, say, $300,000 or $400,000, typically maybe 20%. But for bigger clients, I can really do very magical things. And I'm going to say it again, it's the greatest opportunity in history. But if you are going to think you're going to go into Merrill Lynch or Morgan Stanley and find it, keep dreaming.
Until we get together next month, Ty, all the best.
Thanks, Gordon.
This has been Gordon T. Long, editor and publisher of GordonTLong.com. New recordings are posted regularly and can be found at GordonTLong.com. New show notifications are available through RSS feed, iTunes, and other social networking venues at GordonTLong.com.